Okay, welcome back to our video series here. And where we left off, we were adding the ability to log hours for our users. So if we log in, we had the ability to click on a user and say log hours. And what we did is we used a text field object to allow us to type in the number of hours. So it works fine as long as we put in a number like 4 or 8. But what happens if someone types in 8 hours? Well, that probably won't work so well, right? We get a kind of not too intuitive message here. And thankfully, our model of a volunteer wouldn't allow for that to come in even, right? So under log hours, it would only accept an integer. And then that integer itself is actually validated to be between the value of 0 and 18. So when we're looking at different things, although text fields are a very easy way to work and fast to work with, the problem comes in on the user experience side. And the thing is, we want to prevent our users from hurting themselves, so to speak. We want to take away the opportunity for things to go wrong. So a nice object to do that with is called a spinner. So if we go to our log hours view, we've got it here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this text field, I'm going to delete it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here, and there's an object. There's a few different ones that could do what we want. One's called the slider, another one's called the spinner. I'm going to put the spinner in here. And we can make the spinner and our date field the same width. So let's see here. So our date field is 295. So we can make, no, I already got it, good. So those will line up. And if we go back into our controller now, so let's go to our log hours view controller. If we scroll up to the top, our text field that we read from, this hours worked text field, is no longer there. So let's replace that with spinner, and then we'll say hours worked. Maybe we should make it a spinner just to be safe. Okay, add in the import. Now if we scroll down to our initialize method, we can get rid of, let's go to initialize first, then we can get rid of things. How about that? So if we go down to our initialize method, where is it? There it is. So in here, what we need to do is we just set up our spinner with something called a spinner value factory. And this will actually tell it what the valid range of numbers is. So we're going to say spinner value factory. And we want it to contain integers. Full screen real estate here. And we'll create an integer value factory. Break this over 2 lines so you can see it. And then in here is where we're going to put the acceptable range. So we said it's between 0 and 18 hours is the maximum range. But we can also put in a default value for this. And I'm going to suggest it's 8, so a standard workday. And then what we have to do is we have to attach this value factory to our spinner object. So we called it hours worked spinner. Set value factory. And you can see it assumes the one we've created. Spinner will be initialized with the number 8. And it will not allow the user to go below 0 or above 18. So let's take a look now at all the little errors we created, because every time we refer to a text field is now broken. So here, our default, we no longer need to set this up. right? We don't have to preload any data here because it will be defaulted to 8, so that can go away. And if we scroll down here, when we go to log the hours, this text field is now gone. So what we can do is we can now refer to our hours worked spinner. You can get the value. Now, you can see that it's complaining here because spinners can actually hold different types of objects, not just integers. So the challenge is that this argument needs to be an integer, but what it's really getting is an object. So what we can do is, because we know that whatever comes out here is going to be an integer, we can cast it to be an integer. Okay, so if our object is there, we get cast as an integer. We're controlling all of that. So now should have something a little bit cleaner for our user experience. Log in. Go to Pebbles. Oh, what happened here? Null pointer exception. So this happens when we create an object in our controller, but it's not visible inside the view. And what we did in this last one was we created this spinner object here in our controller. What was that? But here, if we look at the code, we didn't connect it. See how it's not populated? So let's populate that. Say save. Let's try launching that again. So now you see it pulled in the proper volunteer, we've got the proper date, and the default value of hours worked is populated. And if I click the down arrows, it'll go down to our minimum value of 0. And if I click the up arrows, it'll go to our maximum value of 18. And that's all that it'll do. We can only be inside that range. So this is a nice defensive programming technique where both the model, right, that has defensive techniques in it, but we also have defensive techniques inside the GUI itself to prevent having to display an error to the user and getting them to try to correct things. So when we log the hours, it works. If we go check our database, so that was for Pebbles, it was user number 3. And there it is, volunteer ID 3, 8, and a date. Now, the one thing I noticed is we have what we call cancel. Maybe we should label this back, right? Because that takes us back to here. So we can make a quick change on that as well. We just have to go into our scene builder, properties, and type in the word back. Okay, there we go. So there we've updated our spinner and made our view just a little bit better for our users. Thanks for tuning in.